Mining in Nigeria is extreme sport for authorities, practitioners, and the public. Accountability and transparency have been identified as major setbacks to the viability of the sector and its contribution to the nation's economy. Both large, medium, and small miners have been fingered in the human environmental impact that comes with mining. Today, we'll look at regulations around mining in Nigeria. My name is Leah Katung-Babatunde, and as always, I'm glad to have you join me on the policy with Leah. We go on a short break, and we'll be back. We start off with developments in the economy from the Trends Table.
The federal government of Nigeria says it has put in place the Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan, a short-term measure by the president's economic team to address challenges to the economy with focus on production and supporting businesses. In reproposing the economy for growth and development, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Mr. Leah Katung, said ongoing reforms through the plan will focus on driving investments in agriculture, oil and gas, as well as power, with a target of ramping up supply to 6,000 megawatts. The minister, who was speaking at a quarterly media briefing in Abuja, said government has technically exited ways and means borrowing.
Particular focus will be given to driving food security, creating an improved investment climate for oil and gas. Already the executive orders that have been implemented have improved the operating environment, given better fiscal incentives, and just a week or so ago, $500 million of investment in the gas sector was announced, and there's $7 billion on the sidelines waiting to come in as we implement, as and when we implement the already configured better investment environment for oil and gas.
The Senate on Tuesday passed the new National Minimum Wage Bill to officially raise what Nigerian workers should earn to a minimum of 70,000 naira. President Bola Tinubu had earlier transmitted the new minimum wage bill to both chambers of the National Assembly, seeking expeditious support of the lawmakers for its passage. The urgent law is to quell union agitation propelled by current economic realities. Amid raising inflation and food prices, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has again raised the monetary policy rate MPR by 50 basis points. Announcing the decision, CBN Governor Olayemi Kadoso said the committee chose to retain cash reserve ratio and liquidity ratio while adjusting the asymmetric corridor around the MPR from plus 100 to minus 300 to plus 500 to minus 100 basis points.
We have seen positive outcomes from the tools that we have been using over the recent past. For example, exchange rate has converged, limiting the opportunities for arbitrage. This is very important. Inflows have increased.
The World Trade Organization, WTO, says 58 out of its 164 member countries have supported a proposal from the African Group for Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of WTO, to run for a second term of 4 years. A statement by the organization noted that the African Group proposed that the process of reappointing the Director General should be started as soon as possible.
Yeah, mining activities have left dire impacts on communities and the nation with little or no remediation to the environment or action taken against the faults of the existing environmental and mining laws. What do you know about the health implications of living around mines, for instance, and how do they tell on your health and overall well-being? We'll find it out in a bit as we go on to our conversation for the day. Under the Nigerian Constitution, ownership and control of Nigeria's mineral resources are vested in the federal government for the common good and benefit of the citizens. The Mining Act and the mining regulations are administered by the Ministry of Mines and Steel and the Mining Cadastre Office. This means that exploring these minerals must pass through some official processes. Well, the extractive industries is not only about solid minerals, of course, because Nigeria is a major oil and gas nation, and that is also gotten from the ground. So the news has been awash with dire consequences of unethical practices, hence our focus today on mining regulation. I have joining me Faith Nwadishi of the Center for Transparency Advocacy. With vast experience in the extractive industry, the electoral process, and NGO governance, Faith Nwadishi sat for 6 years on the international board of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. And of course, she's the first Nigerian woman to be so appointed in the year 2013, and a past national coordinator of Publish What You Pay Nigeria. She was a member of the National Stakeholders Working Group of NAIT, and so much more added to her long list of achievements. And she joins me this morning for this important conversation. It's nice to have you, Ms. Faith, in our studios.
Good morning. Thank you, yes.
Mines actually have collapsed in a lot of local settlements in recent times. We've also seen not just the fuel theft now, bunkering, flaring, you just name it. The school in Jos recently, the collapse was also linked in a way to activities of mining, and one will be wondering, what are we doing?
We're sleeping, perhaps. The fact is that the way we do mining in Nigeria come with a lot of unethical practices. And unfortunately, the regulatory agencies that should actually come hard on some of the miners that we're having in the country, they're looking the other way. So you have penalties that are stipulated in the laws, but you don't have the implementation of that. Again, because of the caliber of persons that you have, within this mining sector, there seem to be playing another deaf ear to that. And there are some agencies or structures that should be in place that would actually look into this. For instance, you have the minerals regulations for environment, the committee that is supposed to be operational in every state. So you have some of those committees that are not operating because they are not funded. You are supposed to have mine inspectorate, members. You are supposed to have community members. You are supposed to have government appointees in that committee that is to play an oversight on the different mining acts that are going on. You don't have that. Again, you have regulations that say that before you are given a mining license, you ought to go back to the community, do a 5-year community development agreement, but that is after you have done an environmental impact assessment. But because you have agencies, for instance, you have the Ministry of Mines, you have the Ministry of Environment, there seems to be no proper synergy between these ministries in carrying out that. Though recently I've been informed that the Ministry of Solid Minerals and the Ministry of Environment, they now work together, but we still don't see the involvement of community people. So this is how it starts. If you want to get a mining license or even a petroleum license, you need to first and foremost go to the area and conduct what you call environmental impact assessment. So the environmental impact assessment will give you an overview of what your activities will cost to the environment. We look at the livelihoods of the people. There's also the social impact assessment that you have. So that's environmental impact assessment is what should help you make a decision whether you want to look at profits over people. You want to look at your investment. Is it worth it? concerning the life of the people or the environment or the ecosystem within the environment. But so most times you have this, and because you just want to have a company going, you don't look at those. So that's why you have some of those kind of impacts that you have because of mining activities or exploration activities. You see that ordinarily farms, the livelihoods of people are destroyed, farms are destroyed, and then you have, you remember there was a time we had this tremor in Abuja because they were not following those laid down regulations about what you should do to be able to extract, do your quarry or do your work around the environment. So these are the things that we see happening, like the case of the Jos that you mentioned. In those days there used to be a lot of thin mining in Jos, and if you go to some of those communities, you see abandoned pits. Yes. So those abandoned pits have become death traps because part of the regulations that you have, they call decommissioning. So if you have mined in an area, you should actually put in place what you are going to do to remediate the environment, ensure that you bring the environment. Well, you are not ever able to bring the environment to its actual status, but you're supposed to put things in place that will make that environment habitable again. So you don't have that. So what happens is, after many people leave the pits, and then you see that all over, you go to Ebonyi, you see those kind of pits going on. Now in the Niger Delta, you hear that Shell, some of those IOCs are divesting without really looking at the issues around decommissioning, remediation of the environment, ensuring that the state of the environment that you met before you started your exploration is brought back to that state. So these are some of the issues that we are grappling with. And because the agencies that are supposed to pay oversight are not doing what they are supposed to do, and that's why I said we have gone to sleep. So it is important that communities know about this before they go in, because a lot of communities are jostling also for this kind of projects to come, because they think that when these projects come into their community, they become a prestigious community. For instance, I was just talking about the issue of gas flares. Some communities think they have a name for it, they call it shell fire, that if you have gas flares within your community, you are a prestigious community. But
really?
Yes, but we have seen cases. A colleague was just sharing with me that they took blood samples of 80 women between the ages of 15 to 55 within a community where gas flares happen, and they took their blood samples and found that they had hydrocarbons in the blood samples that were far higher than recommendations from WHO. And people are living in those communities. Results have also come back to say this has impacted. You now have women going into early menopause. You have children that are born with deformities. So you have all of those reproductive health issues and other issues, and nobody is held accountable. The impunity is there. Lives are lost in the community. So we are looking at how much is foreign investment coming rather than the sustenance of lives around those communities.
Is it about lack of awareness now, or it has more to do with carelessness?
It's really not lack of awareness, because we have the laws in place. We have the laws in place. For me, it's more about impunity. So you have an officer who is working in a regulatory agency that is supposed to bring the hammer on these people that you have licensed, but rather than bringing the hammer on the people you have licensed, you are allowing the community people to take the brunt. So let's take the solid mineral sector, for instance. You need to get communities to sign this CDA, 5-year CDAs, that is renewable after 5 years. But you have a situation whereby it is the company that designs the CDA and gets the community people to sign. So the community people don't really have much. And even in some cases where you have some community people sitting on the table, they don't know what the outcome of the EIA is, so that they can say, this is what we want for community. So you see them asking for building of a chief's palace, giving money for Salah or for Christmas, things that are not sustainable, things that you just bring money but without looking at the environmental impact of that activity within that community, looking at it from low-hanging fruits, long-term, mid-term, and long-term areas. So on the part of communities, they think that they are doing government a favor and themselves favors, because they feel that, this can bring employment to our community, but they're also not looking at the fact that the impact, the impact overall, when you leave that community, the kind of pain it will bring that community, there's no amount of money that can really take care of that. So you have all of those things. And then, like you had this Zamfara case, for instance, gold mining, the lead poisoning. Yes. Now, if you do for mining, because of the methodology of mining those, they use some unethical chemicals that go into the groundwater and affects the water that the community people use. So over time, you have community people not able to have potable water. Even though you don't have potable water, their streams and their rivers are polluted. And that is also what comes again with the issue of decommissioning. Some of these miners use those chemicals, and because they leave that, there's also leaches of chemicals into their drinking water. Most times, communities where, even in some climes where you have regulations that are working, I have regulators also, the major problem between communities and mining companies is water usage. So you are able to say, we don't want a situation where by whatever you are using, your waste is polluting the water. Now, when you come to the area of gas flares, you need to go to a community where you have active gas flares. You cannot even stay because of the heat. You will feel the heat on your body. Then those farmlands are destroyed, because anywhere you have had an active gas flare, especially if it is a horizontal kind, because they have the one that burns on the ground. So you go to a community and somebody says, oh, there's no more gas flares. I tell you what is happening is that they're now burning it on the ground. They're not facing it up. So when you burn it on the ground, anywhere around there, you cannot have crops grow. So it affects the people. So and because also you are burning a lot of the chemicals, there is a methane emission, it rains down back as acid rain. And then over time, they have to change the roof of their homes because it's been eroded, there's corrosion because of the product. Then you can imagine what happens within. And the aspect is that communities, like I said earlier, are very ignorant about this. For instance, when you go to a place where there's an active gas flare site, even there, the women now feel there's a natural oven for them. So they take their granules, they take their fish, they dry by the side of the gas flare. They don't even come close to the gas flare. It's a little bit far from the gas flare because you cannot stand the heat. So outside that, they now take those things, like in the Niger Delta, there's something they call popo gari, it's actually cassava, they put it in a way. And when they dry their maize, they dry also granules and everything that they have to dry, even fish, where they're able to catch fish. They put it by the side of the gas flares and it dries faster. So they think it is a natural oven. But the after impact, because most times the fire that's burning is also bringing chemicals and putting into that food that they eat. And that is what is causing the infertility, the deformity in the babies that they are having. And then the issue of lead poisoning, some of those, there's also mercury poisoning that they use for extracting of gold. So those things don't work well with the human body, and even with the sea and the other things that you have within the environment destroys the environment. Everybody's talking about climate change. So climate change impact is more where you have some of these activities happening. The people are the ones who bear the brunt, because over time, some of these people don't even have any other place to go to. They live in those communities and they live with those things forever.
Yeah, you said something earlier about the laws are there, but we don't enforce them. I recall that we've talked over time about ending gas flaring, and we're still with it. Amazingly, we're still with it with all the dire consequences. We're still with all the other issues, the lead poisoning. I don't remember if anyone was tried for that. And all over the country, we've had issues. In fact, another one, Oyo State in Ibadan. We've not had any. Is it that there's no transparency in this sector for the Nigerian people to know that are actions being taken or not?
Okay, so actions are taken on paper, but not practically. Because I am in the sector, and this is, I can tell you most sincerely, the issue of gas flares. In 1969, Gowon was president then, realized that there's no way we can continue with gas flares. It's destroying our environment, and decided they were going to end gas flares. We continued shifting the goalposts. Government after government, they will shift the goalposts. And in 2005, in Benin, the High Court in Benin outlawed gas flaring and made it illegal as at 2005. In 2016, President Buhari, said, okay, we are now going to end gas flares, routine gas flares. We are not doing it again. By 2021, we are going to end it. 2 months to the end of 2021, that goalpost was shifted to 2025. And 2025 is just around the corner. We've just shifted it again to 2030. This doesn't mean we don't have laws. There's a high court that has outlawed gas flaring, but we have government upon government now shifting that. There's the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, that was signed in 2021, where we made provisions to end gas flares and talked about monetization. If you are flaring, this is how much you are going to pay for that. But now that government has increased, for the first time, really increased the amount that people pay for penalties. Now, the report that we are getting, for instance, I was in a meeting and we had the Minister of State for Environment, we have NUPRC, we had NOSDRA at the meeting, and they came. The Minister of State for Environment agrees with NOSDRA and the community people that gas flaring is not reducing in our communities. But NUPRC came out to say that gas flare is reducing in our communities. How did you get your data? NOSDRA is using a data from a tracker that they can track, emissions that are coming. Now, we have found that also that in reports that because you have put the volume that you flare higher, the penalty higher, people are not saying they are not flaring anymore. So who should hold them accountable to report the actual flares? We have a technology in the country that can determine actual flares from every point where it is happening. But a government agency is refusing to use that data. Rather, you are relying on the data from oil companies to say this is what we have flared, when you can reach out to a sister agency funded by the same government that we're having to get the data that they're having from that. So if the Minister of Environment, Minister of State for Environment comes to a meeting and says flares are still going on, and an agency of government has to come out to say the flare is reducing, who should we believe? You have some people who are also carrying on mining activities without regulation in the communities. We have stories of nationals of other countries coming to Nigeria, and doing all the wrong things in Nigeria. And even when the community people cry out against them, they are always attacking the community people. So we need to actually get government to sit up and do the right thing. Because, for instance, the gas that we flare is wasted, but this gas that is flared can actually bring resources to the country. You can use them, like we are talking about government having CNG. These CNG buses we are talking about, it is the gas from Nigeria that we are supposed to use for that. You can use gas to power electricity. You can have that. We have talked about the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. It's still in the pipeline. We have not been able to do that. The only way we are utilizing our gas now is the LNG, Nigeria LNG plant that you have, that you actually export, not used in the country. So it's important that the policies that we have in place, like I told you, we don't have issues with policies. It's about implementing those policies and make it work for our people. We need to also go back and look at those policies again, because those policies are tilted more towards investment rather than improving the livelihood of people who live within those communities where you have those natural resources. And the reason why these natural resources are called non-renewable is that as soon as you take it out, you can't take it back. So the more you are taking it, you are depleting that resources. And if you don't have plans in place to be able to utilize it properly, you will end up having gotten out the resources without improving the environment. People are reducing their funding for fossil fuel like we have in the oil and gas. I pray that we don't get to a situation whereby we have not put proper plans in place to utilize what we have now for our future generation, and get to a situation where nobody wants your gas, nobody wants your fuel, and you have not made preparations for what should happen next.
Okay, most sincerely. Thank you, Madam Faith, for making time to give these explanations.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Aldumi Kori.
Keep watching the policy with Leah.
It aims to provide policymakers an opportunity to explain their policies in a way that members of the public affected by those policies can understand and engage with those policies.
Keep watching the policy with Leah.
Simplify This is next, and from there we head to the markets. We draw the curtains here. For more on rates from markets across the country, do well to log on to our sister website. It is www.marketnigertv.com. We have all the information for you there. Saban Media Services, we always want to take you closer to the policies as they affect you. We are for Nigeria and Nigerians. So don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on our various social media platforms. Send in your feedbacks, questions, comments, and suggestions because we value them to serve you better. Until we come your way again, same time next week, be good citizens out there. Don't go protesting and damaging public property, but do it within the ambit of the law. My name is Leah Katung-Babatunde. I say God bless Nigeria.